We respect the histories, languages, and cultures of First Nations, Métis, Inuit, and all First Nations people of Canada whose presence continues to enrich our community. Okay, everybody has a chance to look at the agenda. Any additions or deletions on the agenda? No? Can I get a motion to accept the agenda?
I'll make the motion that the agenda be accepted as prepared.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Perfect. All right, same thing. Item 3, minutes, any changes to the minutes as prepared? If there are no changes, can I get a motion, please?
The chair. I move that the minutes of the December 6th, 2022 regular council meeting be accepted as prepared.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, great. New business, fire services review, Seahawks Consulting. Jamie, it looks like you're up. If you want to begin, and as before, assume that council's read your presentation, and we'll ask questions at the end.
Copy. Do not read to council. They can read for themselves. Got you. All right. Thank you very much, Mayor and Council, for having us in. Really appreciate being able to work with you and having a chance to come here and look at the Crossfield Fire Service. In front of you, you'll have a couple documents. One is the evaluation tool executive report, right? This is done to tell you kind of how the current fire service is. The next document will be a vision document. So how things could be and how we can look at some things. And then the final document will be the action plan that outlines the 5 categories: administration, operations, health and safety, training, and infrastructure. Again, we were able to come out in November. We brought a team of 4 people and spent 4 days here. So we got about 160 hours of looking at your fire service. We got to interview a ton of your firefighters. We got to interview administration, and we got to spend some time with council to talk about levels of service. All of those were great times, great people, very interesting. So let's start with kind of what this is. Briefly for the public, it's an evaluation tool that looks at best practices, recommendations, and requirements of the fire service. So this is a minimum fire services evaluation, meaning that if you got 100%, you meet all the minimum standards that are available to run a safe, effective, affordable fire service. We look at these all across Western Canada. You're the 28th evaluation. It includes the actual tool that we use, the reporting, interviews, documentation review, audits of apparatus, the site, hearing, equipment, and a community hazard assessment. So it's a fairly in-depth deep dive. It's very intrusive. We're right in there with all your folks, and they know we're there, right? And so it's time. The overall score achieved was 57%. And so in our audit process, out of those 28, that's fairly average. You're right in the middle. You're not the best, you're not the worst, you're in the middle there. But like anything, everything could use a little work. Nobody's perfect, right? And so kind of what we found in this evaluation is that I'll start with the things I love. I love your fire hall. You got a nice big fire hall. You built a great place there. It's got all the space that you need, right? You've got some really good trucks there. You've got some top mount enclosed trucks. You've tried hard to keep those trucks up. There's some really good equipment in those trucks. I love the hydraulic tools, for example, and the gear. You've kept up most of the gear to the 10-year standard. And so there was a lot of things that we were able to really have a good look at. The community hazard assessment was really cool for me. I'm not from Crossfield. I've really never been to Crossfield. So you've got a very diverse community here with a cool amount of industrial apartments, a mobile home park, and all of the other homes, and that whole new subdivision, right? There's some beautiful homes in there. So it was nice to come here and look. There's definitely some hidden hazards right? In the industrial park and with a rail line running right through the middle of your community, no question. So it was good to do the community hazard. And the whole point is really to align a level of service for the fire service to follow with the hazards that are available for them to have to action. So we did 21 interviews, which is a lot. It's way more than we normally would do. But as long as people are willing to come in, we're willing to talk to them so that we get a good look at it. I want to quickly thank Kirsten and Sarah, who are here with me, and Jason Wigton, who was another one that came to do the assessment. I got to tell you that Jason was a former resident. He graduated high school here many moons ago, and he was very excited to come back to Crossfield and to see all the cool things that you've done and all the progress that the town's made. So it was neat to have a kind of history in our back pocket as we looked at different things. Okay, so again, best practices, it's good to remember the good things, right? And so the size of your fire hall was a best practice, a good example. You know, the frontline pumper that you have, it's a top mount enclosed pumper. It's a well-rounded, usable truck, another good best practice. Recommendations are things that we can't force you to do. Nobody can force you to do them, right? It might be the National Fire Protection Association recommending it. That might be on staffing or equipment. And then there's requirements. So requirements are things that Alberta Transportation makes us do. They're laws, they're rules, they're things we have to follow. Occupational health and safety obviously uses words like will and shall and must. Right. And so requirements are things that we put inside the document so that you know that they're things that your fire service has to do, right? They're not optional. So you'll find a lot of the money things, you know, buying new trucks and things like that are typically in the recommendations because it's up to you to decide how you use your money versus things like safety would be found in the requirements, right? All right, so your fire service, how we found it today, definitely there's some procedures and processes that are missing. We need to work on the fire service to get those procedures and processes in place and have the administration to follow up with that. So that just means that accountability piece, right? The paperwork to move through those things. You got to have these plans, right? So we need a training plan, we need a maintenance plan, cancer reduction, mental health, you know, things like that. So there was a lot of administrative work that was there, but there was a lot that was missing as well that we got to work on. And we'll talk more about that in the action plan. Another thing with administration that I would say in the executive summary is that we need to have a common operating plan, and we need that operating plan to have structure so that everybody's heading in the same direction. We can't have 3 trains leaving the station in different directions. And so administratively, we need to make sure that the fire service understands that and that they're following a single plan. Operations wise, your fire service is capable. We were actually here when there was an ultralight plane crash. So we got to see them be paged in. We got to see them attend the call. There was a gentleman that was injured in the plane and they got him out, they got him to the ambulance and got him off to the hospital. So they did that in a good way, in a fast way, which probably impacted in a very good way the resident that was injured. So it's always, when you're doing an evaluation, it's interesting to see them have a call or two while we're here to see how things move out. So it was good to see how fast they were and efficient they were. You know, that being said, operationally, there's always things that you can work on, right? And so we got to look at the operations to say, you know, what can Crossfield afford? And so operationally speaking, I would say that you have a big fleet here. You have 8 trucks for a community of 3,600 people and some Rocky View County area that you have to cover. So one of the things in the action plan will be for us to look at that and say, you know, is that the right amount of trucks for the hazard that is here? You know, training firefighters is another operational piece that we got to look at. We have to make sure that there's a current training plan, a schedule. In today's firefighting world, it's really hard to find firefighters. And so the ones that we find, we really have to value their time, right? I have to come to practice and know that you value my time, not just with money, but that I'm going to a good practice. I'm learning new things, able to help the community. And so we didn't find a great training program here. I'm going to be open and honest about that. That's something that definitely needs to change and move forward quickly. You have a lot of great equipment, but there's also some pieces obviously that have fallen by the wayside. So it's kind of the age old thing. Do we need a backup to the backup to the backup to the backup? Right? How many times do we go down that trail before like just having a unit and a backup is enough? So we have to always think about what we can afford, right? And so there may be in some cases too many backups to the backups to the backups, and so that's part of the levels of service that we talked about together, right? Health and safety. The town of Crossfield has a good health and safety plan. It did not transcend into the fire service. And so, although I think that the town of Crossfield itself and the employees that work in the rest of the community follow the plan and know the plan and have a plan, it wasn't part of what we found in the fire service. So that was disappointing and something that needs to be worked on. Training, there's all kinds of training plans. So I talked about having a schedule and the plans. They also need to have lesson plans for each division that's there. And they need to have a driver training program. They need to have a new recruit training program. They need to have officer training and have an officer training program and plan. So there was quite a bit in training that has to be worked on. And unfortunately for the fire service, I think that can kind of be typical in the fire service. We spend a lot of time going on calls and think we're ready. And because we have experience and knowledge, we think we're all set. The sad part is that occupational health and safety clearly states that we have to do continuous training and skill evaluations, and we have to be able to provide that if we're asked for it. So we need to align the training program with the levels of service. Maintenance plan. So a lot of maintenance was getting done. A lot of important maintenance was getting done. The problem was there was just really no clear plan, right? So it's what got remembered got done, and what didn't get remembered didn't get done. And so it's really important with the investment that the community has in the fire service, right? It's expensive stuff. The fire hall is expensive. The trucks are expensive. The equipment and PPE are expensive. So it's important that we have a written out plan and timelines to know that we can take care of that stuff in the proper way, right? So not only do lives count on that stuff, it's a big investment that we have to protect and take care of. So that needs to get done. There was 8 apparatus currently. I think it can get done with less. I think that we can put some units together and figure out a different way to configure that to a smaller fleet, which of course equals less money spent. But if we get the right equipment for the right jobs, we can spend less money, but actually do a better job. So it's important to align that and to right size that fleet to something that works for the town of Crossfield and the mutual aid people that you've agreed to help out. Yeah, the fire hall, like I said, it was great. It was one of my favorites. I took lots of pictures of it. There's lots of great work that was done there in the addition. That being said, inside, I don't think that all the processes and procedures are really lined up inside. So there's some work that could be done inside. Not expensive stuff, not big stuff we have to buy, but more just processes, right? So when we come back from a call, how are we going to clean this? When we show up for a call, where are we going to get our gear on? How are we going to get in the truck? By working some stuff inside the fire hall, I think those processes become quicker and easier and allow our firefighters to clean their equipment and their PPE in a better way, which helps us with our cancer reduction strategy and the maintenance program at the fire hall. So in conclusion of what we found, we ran into a lot of great people. To me, I always like to say you can't train too much for a job that can kill you. So training is of the utmost importance at the fire service. That it needs to have a better process. It needs to have a better procedure. It needs to have a better schedule, right? The firefighters that volunteer their time here certainly have the right to come home safely. And so I think that that was clear to everyone. It's certainly what I've heard from council and from administration, that you feel that way and that you want to make sure that that happens. So I think that we're all aligned there. We just got to work on those procedures to make that happen. And then again, I guess I really just want to thank administration. So we worked a lot with Sue and with Russ to get the information to us. I was talking about this before. We never really had kind of that level of get us the stuff and get it to us fast. In our very first meeting, which is a kickoff meeting for us, so we don't really expect anything. We took a whole drive full of stuff home with us in the kickoff meeting, and 2 passwords to log into the system and look at the documents. And so big thank you to them for that. And also for council, that very first meeting we had where we're talking about levels of service. And so you give us some immediate great feedback about, how you want things to be in the town of Crossfield and your understanding of the community and the hazards that are here. So thank you for that. That was, being able to kick off an evaluation with that level of understanding and that level of stuff to review. It's unheard of for us. So thank you for that. Mayor, are we just going to hammer right straight through to the vision and just keep going? All right.
Keep on going.
Copy. Got it. I love it here. I don't have to guess what I'm doing. Okay. So that was kind of what we found, right? Now where we think it could go. It's really important to set those levels of service, right? And so we've given you a lot of options. We've talked about them now. We've given you some draft documents, and that's really now in the hands of council to say, this is what we want our fire service to do. And so that's step one. I know early in the new year, you'll be talking about that again. And I'm very confident that this council will be clear with their direction and pick a great level of service for the community. So that has to happen. Policy, standard operating guidelines, those are the rules, right? We need to make sure that the rules are really clear. Both the rules like, don't drink and drive and drive our fire trucks, but also the rules of like, when we go to a house fire, we're going to follow this method of fighting the house fire, right? If we have enough people, we can go inside and be aggressive. If we don't have enough people, we have to stay outside and be defensive. And so that's, the policies are yours to set. The standard operating guidelines are the fire departments to work through. Your MFR program. So the medical calls that your teams go to, it's very limited in Rocky View County. They only go to Delta and Echo. So the most serious stuff. Inside the town of Crossfield, they go to everything, every single thing. And I think that you'd want to talk about that some more, right? Is it too much? You have to remember that, yes, it's a paid on call system. So we give them a small stipend to help out, but it's also a volunteer system. I have to volunteer my time. I have to volunteer to come here. And if there's too many calls, there's too many calls, right? And so, to me, one of the things we talked about earlier was the Omega calls. So the definition of an Omega call is that you don't need an ambulance right away. All right. It's so the very definition says we shouldn't rush over there to help you. And yet as a fire department, we go there. So we might want to rethink those levels for sure. Staffing is so tough, right? It's different community to community, and it's very hard to look at every single community and say, let's be like those guys or let's be like those guys, because it's so unique. Your community is so unique. You've got some really unique industry here. You've got a lot of unique buildings. And so you have to kind of look at your own space and say what will work for us, right? So without a doubt, the paid on call model is a good model here, right? You have people come in and when they're available, they can come. With that staffing always comes the chance that you're not going to have enough people. Right. And so when you can only afford a certain model, you can only afford to worry to a certain level if people will always come. Right. I don't think your fire service lets you down very much. I think people show up and they go to the calls. So it's just important that we have enough to cover the calls and that we, give them enough training and equipment to do the job. So there's some things there that we definitely can talk about. 2 things firefighters hate: change and the way it is now. right? And so it's true here, just like it's true at every other fire department. We start to talk about change and there's panic, but at the very same time, we're talking about change and they're like, well, that could be exciting. That could be a new way and an exciting way to do it. We don't want to change the way we train, but you know what? We really need to change the way we train. And so your fire service wasn't different or special in that way. Change is scary, but they also, I think they understand that some change needs to happen here. And some of it needs to happen very quickly. It's about firefighter safety. It's about being able to come home. So I think that we can work on that quickly. The apparatus I already talked about. I really do think we just need to align that a little bit. I don't think it's like crazy out in left field, but I also think that there's some opportunities there. A good example that I can give you right off the top of my head is you have 2 pickup trucks that you use as wildfire trucks, right? So we use wildfire trucks from about the middle of April till about the middle of June. And then we use them again from kind of the end of August until maybe the middle of October, right? And so to have 2 units that we basically only use for 3 or 4 months a year might not be as good a use as combining in those into a little bit bigger unit and only having one that we can use for all kinds of calls, right? And so making it kind of multiple use, and we're using it 12 months of the year for 5 or 6 different call types would be something that I think we should really look at here in Crossfield. Sorry, I always talk like that. I'm so invested that I start to use words like us and I apologize for that. It's all you, right? I just get passionate about this stuff.
I mean, if you want to come work for us.
So I have lots of jobs. Sorry. And so then another one that obviously everyone talks about at the fire service in a way is the aerial apparatus, right? So those are expensive pieces. A brand new one today would cost $2 million, right? So we're not getting one of those. I get that. So how do we manage that, right? If we have to have aerial firefighting, so we look at mutual aid contracts with our neighbors, Carstairs and Airdrie. You have a current one that's had some work done to it, right? And it'll last for a few years too. But when you look to replace it, spending $2 million on a brand new one's not going to happen. So I think we need to spend some time looking at what are all the other options and what are the best way to manage that, right? Every firefighter always wants every tool in their toolbox. You're crazy if you don't. The problem is our toolbox is only so big and it only fits so many tools and we only have so much money to fill it. And so I think that some discussions around that and some actual understanding would go a long ways at the fire service. Keep doing a good job with your equipment. You've got some of the top rescue equipment that's out there. A lot of your PPE is newer and top notch. The pieces that aren't, right, we just make a plan and move those forward. Your training center, I won't lie, it scared me a bit. It's definitely built by firefighters, always the best intentions, the biggest hearts. All those firefighters have the best intentions, right? We're going to train people. But yours has some scary pieces to it. There's some cool pieces. There's some pieces I took pictures of and sent it out to my big network saying, hey, you should check out this fire extinguisher prop that they have here. You should check out this ladder training prop that they have here. But there's other pieces that are some pretty old buildings that got drug in there. And then there's some security issues, right? So one of the liability pieces for the town of Crossfield is that if it's not a secure site, meaning it's not fenced on all 4 sides and it doesn't have security, meaning razor wire or barbed wire or whatever you decide to put on there. Anything that happens there could be your liability. And I'll be honest with you, that's a big risk for the town of Crossfield. If some kids decide to play around there and someone gets hurt, it's bad enough someone gets hurt and then there'll be the added expense of everything that happens next. So, it's okay to have a training center and lots of places have a training center. It's a good investment in your firefighters, right? They don't have to be millions of dollars. They don't have to be hundreds of thousands of dollars. They could be a couple C-cans welded together and fence around it. You got some good bones. Time to just maybe decide, are we in that business or are we not? And to align that. Again, the fire hall was great. If we do some work on the inside, get some stuff straightened out, get some processes laid out, get some safety signage and some of the safety pieces in place, I think you got a really great fire hall there. All right, the conclusion piece. Some work. We need to do some work, right? So what does that work look like? We need to straighten out some administrative pieces. We need to get the operations aligned with the reality of what a fire department this size should be doing, right? We need to track down traffic safety plan and a bunch of traffic safety signaling devices and things like that. We need to put the safety first, right? So we're going to have to work with the fire service to get safety first there. And a big one that I often get caught saying is leave it alone. It'll work itself out. That's not a plan, right? And so we got to have a plan, right? So we'll talk about the action plan next and some of the next pieces. All right. How am I doing, Mayor? We're still okay?
Doing great.
I'm hurrying, so she likes it. All right. Okay, so the action plan, it's in those 5 pieces, right? So I don't want to read the whole thing to you, right? You can look at it administratively. It's like levels of service, policy, standard operating guidelines. They had a bit of an attempt there with standard operating guidelines. I think that it needs to be better. It needs to be more aligned with the levels. So it all starts with levels of service. You tell the fire service what you want them to do, and then we build the policy, standard operating guidelines, training plan, apparatus, equipment. We build everything around those levels of service, right? So if you don't want us to do it, you just tell us and we don't do it, right? If you want us to be working on stuff, obviously we've had the discussion and you'll be able to give us some really good levels of service there. Recruitment and retention. So if you're going to recruit people, you have to have a plan on what you're going to do with them. So that's right from the first piece of paperwork you fill out all the way down to how do I get off probation? How do I know that I'm a good firefighter? Right. And so there was a lot of pieces to that puzzle that are missing, right? How I get on the fire service, how I'm trained during my first few months on the fire service, and how do I know when I'm good enough? I'm off probation. That needs to be developed and implemented. Staff evaluations. I know that people, it's volunteer firefighters. We don't evaluate volunteer firefighters. I'm here to tell you, we have to. We have to have an evaluation process. We have to know that they know what they're doing. We have to annually, we got to talk to them and say, hey, how's it going? What's the good? What's the bad? What's the ugly? What can we do better around here? So that needs to happen. Some tracking. So you've gone with SiteDocs as a software database. And I think that Russ is doing some great work with that. And maybe there's the opportunity to even implement that even deeper into the fire service once they can kind of understand it better and start to use it. The capital budget. So we looked at the capital budget. We looked at the operating budget. We've given you some suggestions in the binder, given some suggestions to administration, and we'll continue to work on that. And I think the big thing when you think about budgets, doesn't matter if it's operating or capital, for the fire service, you have to be really clear that it's wants and needs. Right? We always want the best stuff, the newest stuff, everything that's in the catalog and on the internet. But what do we need to do the job that you sent us out there to do? And so it's always really important to be super clear with them, the wants and needs, right? Tell me what you need. We'll help you out. It's okay to tell me what you want too, and we'll see how it works out. Or we'll try to secure some grants or funding. But at the end of the day, what I will tell you is wants and needs. Right? It's probably what you tell me at the same time. All right. Operationally, traffic safety plan and everything that goes with that. That's an immediate need that has to be worked on as soon as possible. Responding to the emergency, driving program, accountability system, right? How do we keep track of everyone? How do we keep them safe? Incident command. So we watched some variations of that I'm not that proud of, right? So we need to have a clear incident command plan, who's in charge, when they're in charge, when are we going to switch, who's in charge? Special operations, right? And so this has kind of really been triggering everyone as we talk about this. Special operations are those things outside of fire, rescue, and medical. So special operations would be a train car tips over down on Main Street. That's a special operation, right? So do we want to be part of that? What level do we want to be part of that at? Ice rescue, water rescue. We talked about some threats that are very far away from your community and whether we need to actually be part of that or not, or whether there's other fire departments that can handle that. Confined space, that was a funny one. I talked about that. So you cover a big part of Rocky View County, right? And so at a lot of the properties in Rocky View County here, there's a water tank, there's a sewer tank before the sewer field. There's a lot of confined spaces that nobody really thought about. Over here in your industrial space, they build confined spaces. They build them, hundreds of them every year. And so, you have some pretty unique manufacturing here, some pretty cool stuff going on. But we have to be aware of those unique items and how the fire department's going to help out when there's a problem. Health and safety, again, talked about that. So you do have a good health and safety program for the town of Crossfield. It just really needs to be implemented into the fire service in its entirety. Cancer reduction strategy. I don't think it's a secret that cancer hits firefighters at a higher rate than any other organization, right? Any other job. So we have to make sure that we're getting our firefighters clean, that we're making sure we follow a decontamination procedure. And there was pieces of that and there was glimmers of hope. So it's just making sure that we finish that program up. There's 11 best practices and we're probably following 4 or 5 here. So it's just to get to the rest of the way. Rehabilitation plan, right? So you have a smaller crew here. So how are we going to make sure people are safe when we're on larger events? Again, it's just one of those unique evaluations. We could look out the front door of the fire hall and you're looking at a fire that they had on a structure just a block away, right? And so the threat is real. Like you're right there at the fire hall looking out the front door at the threat. And the threat for firefighters is being hurt or killed at these types of events. Training program, man, I don't want to beat that to death. I think you get it, right? We need all kinds of training plans. We need programs, schedules, lesson plans, evaluations. We need to work on our training center, officer training, and then infrastructure. So I think the big infrastructure piece is make a maintenance plan, stick to it, have a process for broken equipment and how we're going to get it fixed and let everyone know. And then probably the most expensive one and the biggest one, I guess, would be align the apparatus fleet with the levels of service. So just, making the fleet a little smaller and making sure we replace it with the right size trucks. And if you let firefighters go crazy, they're buy $2 million trucks all day. That's not going to happen, right? So which trucks do we get? Do we get used ones? Do we get new ones? Do we get small ones? Do we get big ones? What jobs can those trucks do? It's really important to spend the time and align that. In a way that's affordable and sustainable. All right. I think I don't want to take any more time because I'm trying to stay on the mayor's good side here. So we'll hit questions when she's ready.
That sounds great. I just first want to extend a thank you, Jamie, to you and your Seahawks team. I think you've done a really good, thorough job and that's appreciated. I also want to say, I believe in your comment that each firefighter deserves the right to come home safely. That level of service, procedures and policy are important to drive a successful fire department. And it's important that we move forward and work together to improve safety and create efficiencies through bylaw, policy and procedure for our town fire department. And I think that this is the starting point to improve things, make things safe, and ensure that we provide a great service, not only to our volunteer fire department and the firefighters, but to our residents. So thank you for that starting point. And I'm sure that our administration will work together with you to come up with a really great plan on priorities. So I'm going to open it up to questions now. So questions from council. Councillor Gustafson, go ahead.
Through the chair. Thank you, Mayor. Thanks again, guys. I got about 3 or 4 questions here. And do you want me just one at a time or blast through them all?
Hammer away. I'm ready.
Okay. So the one I kind of crossed out is because it's kind of redundant here. You said you had done about 28 other reviews. Do you use this like a similar template when you come to a municipality and, it's a fresh, you just, here's a template. This is what we got to look at and kind of elaborate on, I guess, your start when you walk into a municipality, whether it's just even the fire hall or, the admin building, where do you start off at and how do you attack that? Is it kind of this, the same template you use, or is it, do you have to do some investigation before you mold something around that?
For sure. Okay, so I've been in the fire service for 32 years and 22 of that I've been chiefing. So I've had a lot of consultants through my door and it's a funny thing for me to say, but I don't think anyone hates consultants as much as I do. So it's a bit weird that I'm here in that role, right? And so one of the reasons that we got into this was that we really hated getting that templated every single, I could go online and read a community the same size as me and I would know what they would say. And so what we did is we made it so it was impossible to do that. And so our reporting starts fresh every single time. And so you can't even copy and paste and we can't even make the mistake. So the only way we could make a community mistake was if we're working on too many at once. And so we really work hard not to do that. So we come to a community and our own rule for ourselves, that our promise is that we're from 45 days from the day we start until the day you get the initial draft reports, which is unheard of, right? And so we do that because we don't want to make those mistakes. We want for 45 days, this was all about Crossfield and everything that Crossfield had to offer. And so when we come in, the community hazard assessment is from scratch, right? So is there a template? Yes, right? We know we're going to look for the different types of hazards. We know we're looking for big buildings. We know we're looking for dangerous goods, right? But you'll find as you go through, all of the pictures are from your community. It's about your community. We found this apartment building. We found this gas station. We found this processing plant. And so from start to finish, it's only stuff about your community, right? And so we work hard to know all of the other things, right? So personally, I've been to 465 fire departments across Canada. I only keep track because my goal is 500 and I can't wait to get to 500 so I can stop counting. But I have a big inventory in my head to compare to. Right. And so I'm always comparing things I see at different fire halls. I'm always sharing things I see at different fire halls. I've seen, a couple thousand apparatus, 2,500 apparatus. And so when I say to align apparatus with the levels of service, it's really important to me. And it means a lot because I've seen enough apparatus to know that you can have a Swiss Army knife and still do a good job, as long as you don't have too many pieces added onto it. Right. And so, and of course I understand the money piece of it. And so again, that's unique to every community, right? If I go to a place that gets a lot of oil revenue and has a lot of industry and has a lot of tax money, they might buy something different than what you can afford. And so it's really important for us to talk with administration and understand the financial picture. It's not because we're nosy, but the recommendations have to meet the ability to pay for it. And so, there's certain things that you have to do, right? If you're going to run a fire service, we got to train and that costs money, right? But it doesn't mean that we have to have a $2 million apparatus. It doesn't mean that we have to have $1 million apparatus. And so there's things that, you have to do them if you're going to run a fire service. And then there's other things that we can adjust and figure out. So for us, it's 100% brand new from scratch every single time. We got to fill out every single document you see we've had to fill out from scratch. And that was important to us because, let's just say I've had 20 different reports in my career and I haven't been a big fan. Right. And so we wanted to do it different. And so, and we want every community to be unique. Right. There's 460 fire departments in Alberta. And unfortunately, we run them 600 different ways. So, some are running 2 different ways in the same hall. And so we have to look at it in a unique way because every community is there's some things that are the same, but there's a lot of things that are very unique to each community. Right. Not every community in Alberta has train tracks running right down Main Street. Not every community in Alberta, has the new infrastructure that you're building here, the new subdivisions that you're building here. And so we have to look at it in a unique way to say, what will work for Crossfield today, but what's going to work for Crossfield 10 years down the road? I don't think we can look much farther than that because we don't know which developers are coming and which processes and things are coming. But you know, we can have a good look at 5 to 10 years from now and say, you know, what do we have to be doing to be ready?
Okay. Thank you for that one. So you talked about, you'd done 21 separate interviews. Is that, and you said it was not typical on doing that many. Was there a reason to do that many, or is it just to get more data points, or you saw the opportunity that you had? Hey, I can interview as many people as I can, that everybody's going to be able to do it. And I just get a bigger data set and you can fill in some gaps in that you might be seeing.
So as part of our process, we set some minimums, right? So we interview every chief officer. We interview one person from administration. We interview one out of every 3 officers, lieutenants or captains, and we interview one out of every 5 firefighters. When we come to a place the size of Crossfield, we'll interview every single person that has something to say. Right. And the reason for that is really, you know, by the time we get to the 21st interview, we got it. Right. But you're looking for that nugget, that one thing that somebody says that might be different than the other 20 people. That one thing that someone says it's so important and so critical that you don't know how everyone else missed it, but they did. And so every interview for us, like if they're willing to take a half hour to an hour and a half, and maybe some of them way longer, and invest that time with us, I mean, the best thing we can do is sit there and listen and write it down and make sure that we capture that. Right. And so we're probably the worst consultants in the world because we spend way more time than we probably should. But it's important to us. Right. And it's that being driven by firefighter safety and being wanting to help that makes it so. Like, I got to tell you, if 50 firefighters would have said we're going to do interviews, we'd still be over there doing interviews, right? Because we might find that one thing that we got to change, that we got to fix, that we got to write down, that it's a best practice or it's a recommendation or requirement. So
Okay, perfect. Thank you. I have one last one, Mayor, if I may. Sorry. You did talk about the training program and, you know, how we basically what I'm going to ask is who really initiates this program? Does it get, and who develops it or and gets implemented? Does it come from, you know, the fire chief? Does it come from administration, a combination?
yeah, it's different in every place, right? I mean, leadership has its burdens. So the fire chief's responsible. That's how it is, right?
Mhm.
But at the end of the day, that can be also, you know, he can task other people with that job. And I think what happened here is that there was a lot of attempts, and I think there's been at times really good training happened here. And then at other times, maybe we've missed the mark. I think, you know, there's a half a dozen or more different times where we're going to have a whole new plan and we're going to try it, and it didn't work out, right? And then there becomes some resistance to training and things like that. So at the end of the day, like, don't get me wrong, it's not like there's zero training happens here. It just gets organized 5 minutes before practice starts, and then we do what we can do, and you know, we don't write it down, sort of thing.
Yeah, I guess maybe I should have phrased it like the standards that we set for training.
Okay.
I guess maybe that's where I was getting at, is the standards we set for training. Does that really get pushed down from, you know, just from the fire chief, or does it go higher through administration and then to the fire?
At the end of the day, it's actually driven by occupational health and safety. So you actually have no choice. Like, so basically what it says is we have to identify all the things that we're going to do. And then we have to tell how we're going to meet those objectives through training. And then we have to write down and tell how we're going to evaluate our firefighters to prove that we did it.
Okay.
And so it's one of those pieces where not only does it just make sense to have good training so our firefighters can come home safe, it's also regulated by occupational health and safety, forced on us to make sure that we do that training.
Absolutely. Okay. Thank you. That was all. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Questions? I'm good. You good?
I'm good.
Okay. Okay, and then I guess I'll go. So kind of a question statement, I guess, this isn't something that has happened, just recently. Obviously, I think this has evolved over time. Did you see this evolving over like quite a few years?
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. This doesn't just happen overnight, right? I think that some things that you got to point a finger at, even though we're sick of talking about it, is COVID, right? Not being able to have in-person practices for a couple of years. That hurts, and it's hard to restart after. I think that a lot of people had their hands on it. A lot of people had a chance to get it going. And for whatever reason, right? You get it, and you have to remember that they all have other jobs and busy lives. And so I think there was a lot of false starts and some failed attempts. And that starts to run people down, right? And then kind of who wants to take over this thing? It's massive. Training in the fire service is one of the biggest pieces, right? We train 90% of the time. We get ready 90% of the time for 10% of the actual doing. And so it's like a huge piece of the fire service. So, when I come in for 2.5 hours a week and someone says, "Hey, you want to take care of training?" That's tough, right? So, we got to look to the people that come in a little more than 2.5 hours a week to take care of those pieces for us.
Yeah, and I would say it's kind of like, sometimes you have, somebody who's really good at firefighting or doing the action pieces, but we don't always have the right people that are there to do the planning or the coaching and the training and those types of things. And, in addition to that, maybe not knowing how to ask for those right supports to get them to the next steps.
I couldn't agree more. One of the phrases I use all the time is, we don't know what we don't know until someone tells us, right? And so I agree.
So I'm just curious you have some great action plan charts here. But one of the things that I see missing, maybe it's somewhere else on the action plan chart, is that priority. Like, would it be possible to add, you have assigned to budget, capital, operating, completion date, status, but could we assign a priority to those actions so that we can systematically go through and went, oh, priority 1, check, 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 2, check, check. Do you kind of a checklist on there?
Almost like you did this before. So 100%. So that's what comes next, right? So we come in and we talk to you about these things, what we saw and what we think the future should look like. And we start to write out an action plan. The problem is, at this point, this is our action plan for the Crossfield Fire Department. So what comes next is administration and the fire department and council.
Sorry, Russ.
Get their pieces in there. And then once their pieces are in there, then I 100% agree with you. I think then it becomes, sorry, Sue, administration's job to say, these are the things that we can do. And so
Okay.
A big thing that we didn't say yet is it's really important to look at this. There's a lot of things here that have to get done. Some are expensive, some are cheap, some are fast, some are slow. So really look at like a couple of budget cycles and 3 years, right? So things get broke down over time. We also repair them over time. And so it's important to, there's some things we want to happen, right? Like when we're done here, if you want me to go do some training on traffic, I'm all over it. So there's some things that have to happen quickly, but there's some things that are going to happen more slowly as well.
Yeah, I agree. And I can see some things in here too that really aren't going to cost a lot of money. We just need a little organization, a little plan to get it done and to implement it. So those are some quick wins that can happen as we go through the rest of the prioritizing for capital, or like for any budgeting and things that have to happen over the 3 years. Okay, so if there's no other questions, I really want to thank you for your thorough job and time, not only you, but to administration for all the hard work and time that's dedicated to this so that we can make things better. And I was just curious if council could just give me a motion to accept the fire services Sue.
Sorry, Mayor Harris, I just wanted to add one thing. In terms of process and where we're going from here, because we're hitting Christmas, of course, which is a wonderful time of year. And we will be a Hallmark town one day. I just wanted to let council know that next steps for us in early January will be administration, as well as Seahawk Consulting will be arranging to meet with the fire chief, the deputy chief, and the administrator. And then the commitment that was also made by administration to the membership was that we would hold a meeting with the fire services members to brief them on what the contents of the report is. So those will be the next steps. And then following that, we'll be diving into the plan of action and bringing some stuff forward and figuring out some things that we can get onto right away. And I think, as Jamie mentioned, we're anticipating this will be at least a 3-year process to get us back on track.
Excellent. Thank you, Sue. All right. So if we can get a motion to accept the fire services review for information. Counselor Gustafson.
Through the chair, I do have a motion written out, but it does have an addition to it for direction for administration as well. This can be up for debate, but I'll read off the motion that I had written down. That I move that the fire services review presentation and information given by Seahawk Consulting be accepted for information and direct administration to continue interaction with Seahawk to implement the action plan developed by the review.
Do it.
Is that acceptable, Sue?
Absolutely.
I wasn't sure if he needed continuing direction, but
That's great.
I think that will work. Did you need that again, Lindsay?
No, I think I got it.
Okay,
Excellent. Motion's on the floor. All in favor? Motion carried. Thank you. You guys have a safe drive home.
Thank you.
Good addition. Okay, item 5.1, rodeo grounds agreement update, Russ Nash.
Thank you, Mayor Harris. Good evening, council. Yes, so before you use a report, just an update on the rodeo grounds lease agreement. So at the October 4th regular council meeting, the following motion was made, moved by Councillor Brennan that council direct administration to pursue further discussions regarding a new lease with the Rodeo Society. Oh.
Sorry, can I just stop you just for 1 second?
Certainly.
Counselor Fox?
I didn't because it's for informational purposes only.
Okay. Just check. I just wanted to check.
Okay, that's why I didn't, but I can if you want.
That's up to you. So if this is for just information only, and I think that's fine. Okay, fair enough. Sorry, Russ. go
Okay,
ahead.
no problem.
Just want to be sure.
So moved by Councillor Brennan that council direct administration to pursue further discussions regarding a new lease with the Rodeo Society for a 5-year term effective January 1st, 2023, and the agreement be brought forward for council approval at the December 6th, 2022 regular council meeting. Obviously, those deadlines were not met by administration. Apologies for that. The new agreement has not been completed. However, administration has been in contact with the Rodeo Society and a meeting has been tentatively scheduled for January 13th, 2023. The new agreement will be updated to ensure that it reflects the current environment and that is mutually beneficial for the town, the Rodeo Society, and the community. Administration will have the new agreement prepared and brought forward to the February 21st, 2023 regular council meeting. And that's that.
Okay, questions for us? Okay, Counselor Gustafson.
No, thanks, Russ. I do have a question for you. Since we're, the theme of tonight is action plans. It is included in the agreement with the town and the Rodeo Society. Would there be an action plan on any development or improvements to the site or included in that? Or is it just kind of a blanket? I guess. It's just kind of a question before we get it, and then I'm asking the question again.
Right. I think the agreement, and I have to confirm, but I think it does touch on improvements to the grounds, but we would make sure that there's something in there that states parameters around that.
Yeah, and kind of where I'm getting is we plan to bring it to this level by, this year and this level, like, kind of a step-by-step process within the 5-year term. Is, I don't, maybe that's just what I'm looking for. I don't know if the rest of council would want the same, but
I don't think there would be any difficulty at all. I think we're meeting with James on the 13th to add a schedule that lays out those improvements over the next 5 years.
yeah, and that could just be an attached schedule.
Yeah.
You
And
know,
that's what we
yeah.
do, is it attached to the schedule.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you.
Any other questions? Just a comment from me. I think anytime that we look at these agreements, and I'm sure that you guys know this, and it's not just for the rodeo, but it's across the board on any town-owned facility or lands, that yes, it's mutual benefit that we have to look at, but we also have to remember that the town owns these lands and owns these facilities. And I think we have to look after, the best interest of the town and use of those public facilities at all times. So as long as that stuff is in any agreement that we make, that's great too.
Def-
Sue.
I am happy to report that I have spent a considerable amount of time this week on finalizing a council submission and a new policy with regards to leasing and what's the other word I was looking for? Leasing agreements, all that kind of stuff, which will also be coming to council at that meeting, last meeting in January as a draft, because I'm sure you'll have some comments. But yes, it's finally done. And so it will be presented to you in January.
I love that. Thank you for doing that. I think that's kind of one of the missing pieces as we move forward with any type of agreement on town land and facilities. I appreciate the work. Anything else? Perfect. Does somebody want to make a motion?
I'll make the motion. To the chair. Motion that the council accepts the report regarding the rodeo grounds lease agreement with the Rodeo Society as presented for information.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Great. Item 6.1, Marigold revised agreements. It's your night, Russ.
That would be me again. Okay, so. All right, my computer's doing funny things. Here we go. On June 21st, 2022, the most recent agreement with the Marigold Library System was signed. Administration recently received an amended agreement, which is attached to this report, from the Marigold Library System with a slight change to language in sections 35 and 36 on page 7. The original agreement clarified that physical library collections belong to the local library once they are delivered to the library. However, this resulted in Marigold's insurance not covering the library collections, which is a core service provided by Marigold to member libraries, because they no longer have a financial interest in the collections as noted by their insurers. To address this, they have added a sentence to the previously mentioned sections to clarify that the collections are still insured by Marigold. These are the only changes made to the agreement. Marigold has asked member municipalities and library boards to sign and return the amended agreement. Administration's recommendation is that administration has reviewed the amended agreement and does not have issue with the changes made to sections 35 and 36, as they confirm that the library collections remain insured through Marigold's insurers. The rest of the agreement remains as it was when it was previously signed. Therefore, administration recommends that council approve and sign the amended agreement with the Marigold Library System as presented.
Thanks, Russ. Just a quick question. Is the Crossfield Library aware of this change as well?
I would have to follow up with them on that.
Okay, and do you think there's a need for them to know this? And who would carry the additional insurance? Would it be the town or would it be the library?
If they were to have to insure it themselves,
Yes.
that would be the library that would carry that insurance. And there is a spot within this that they have to sign the amended agreement as well. So they will be
Okay,
reviewing
so this is
that.
something that you would go over with the library and ensure that they know. Okay,
Absolutely. Yeah.
perfect. Thank you. Questions for us? Okay, no further questions. If I can get a motion, please.
I'll make the motion. I move that council approve and sign the amended agreement with the Marigold Library System as presented. Or did I miss
Okay.
something?
Any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thanks, Russ. All right, 7.1 financial update. Amber. Sorry, 6.2. Oh, cancellation of the January 3rd, 2023 council meeting. Sorry, Sue. So. Yeah. There wasn't really any items for the January 3rd meeting and soon I talked about it. So I'm just curious if council has any issues with canceling the January 3rd meeting.
No.
Good.
Through the chair.
Yeah.
I do actually think it's a good idea as well, because it'll give administration more time to prep to move us to the community hall to start our meetings there in January.
Okay, great. If there's no concern, then can I get a motion? I'll make Counselor Fox.
Yep, sorry, it's back. I make the motion that the January 3rd, 2023 regular council meeting be canceled.
Excellent, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Sue.
I was just wanting to ask you, Mayor Harris, if we were also going to talk about in 2023, the closure of the office between Christmas and New Year's with staff being asked to take vacation when we have that 3-day week.
Yeah, those floater days in between.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. We chat about that a little bit. I brought this up to Sue. And I'm just curious, the council wants to have that conversation about taking those floater days in between Christmas and New Year's. And really just closing the office for those days. I don't think we get a lot of traffic in here. I don't think a lot of, things get done during that time. Some municipalities do that. The provincial government does that. And I think the federal government may even do that as well. So I wanted to open that up for discussion on what your thoughts are. Councillor Gustafson.
Through the chair. I think it's a great idea for everybody. It's great, a good reset for everybody. The only thing is to have, some sort of coverage, on call or whatever. And I'm sure that has already been thought about. So.
Yeah, just for
That was my
that
own.
big snow event or any emergency or anything like that. And we can leave that up to administration to figure out if
Absolutely.
everyone's get that.
I think it's a great idea.
Absolutely. Why be any different than the prevention?
I don't think we need a motion on that.
I'm not sure. Do we need a motion on that at all?
No, just as information, and I'm going to talk to the staff about it to make sure we're all aligned, and then I'll bring it back for a formal motion.
Okay, great. Any further discussion then? Do you want a motion just for information?
Sure. that-
Okay, we can do that.
I have a question. You're going to talk to the staff, but how are you going to bring it back for a formal motion?
That was my next.
If
I
we
don't
have a
as
meeting?
well.
Need a formal motion.
You're only accepting it as information tonight. I need to make sure all the staff are aligned of this isn't 3 days. These are going to be part of our vacation days.
Yeah,
So I need to make sure we're 50+1 and in alignment on that. And then I'll bring it back as a formal request.
So this isn't for we're not implementing this year.
Not
So
this year. This is for 2023. Sorry, Justin.
fair enough.
It's like,
Fair
you
enough.
don't have.
Is that what you're gonna say? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, Lord. Get my head
Okay,
around
we're all on the same.
Yeah,
page
that's
now.
right.
Okay.
Yeah, so for next year,
For
sorry,
next year.
staff.
Got a year to figure it
All right. So can I get a motion to accept that for information?
out. I move that we accept that talk as information. Sure.
Okay, all in favor? Motion carried.
Confused.
Like,
Thank you, Sue, for the reminder on that one. Amber,
Great.
we finally got to you. Item 7.1.
Okay, thank you very much, Mayor, and good evening to council. I'm providing a financial update for activity up till the end of November 30th. Based on that timeframe and typical accounts, we should see 8.3% of budget remaining to bring us to the year end. Of course, there's a lot of non-typical accounts that we have are payments and expenditures. So you'll see a lot of variance in the budget lines. I'll just run through a few highlights of revenue and expense variances that I thought were worth bringing up at this time, and we'll go from there. The interest revenue is higher than projected, and that's due to increased interest rates on our bank balances. Another revenue variance is the Canadian Heritage Grant, which was 15,750 that was received. And this will be used for the New Year's Eve fireworks display in Amory Park, which I hear are fabulous. So the Crossfield Wellness Network, we have $20,000 of unexpended grant funds, or nearly $20,000 that'll be carried forward to 2023. And utility revenue is trending slightly lower than budget, but that's also consistent to the lower than budget purchases of water. So you would expect both would behave in the same way. Expense highlights include higher fuel and power expenses. Right now we're in between our power contracts. So starting January 1st, we'll be in that locked in Alberta municipalities rate, which should be, it sounds like they're still negotiating the rate. And, but hopefully it'll be a fairly favorable rate due to the group buying power. There's been some unexpected repairs throughout the year that have increased some maintenance and repair budgets, such as the heating system at the CIBC building, pump on engine 155 was rebuilt, and an electrical panel was installed or improved at the public workshop. Heating costs are lower than expected, although there are bills outstanding for the colder months of the year. So we'll have to wait till the end of the year to see how that shakes out. Some expenses in the Parks and Facilities Department have variances, and that's mostly due in part to the newly established department. So really 2022 was the pilot year for that department. And now that there will be a full year of actual information, we'll be able to budget better in that department. The purchase cost of water meters has nearly doubled, so that we'll see that line has exceeded the budget, and that's just due to the cost of meters in general. Of course, there's been interruptions due to the supply chain issues and just increased costs in general that are inevitable, I suppose. The last quarterly school requisition payment has not been made, and it will come out in December. I guess we are in December now, but it'll be at the end of the month. And the last debenture payment for the water reservoir, the last debenture payment of 2022 for the water reservoir is coming out at the end of the month also. So we don't see that in our actuals. There are other variances attributed to vendor invoices that haven't been received or entered into the finance system at the time that I wrote the report and ran the report. Payroll costs are projected to come in on budget. So at the end of the budget versus actuals report, you do see there is a surplus of approximately $2.8 million at this point. Please note, as mentioned previously, there are several expenses that have yet to be accounted for, such as the school requisition and debenture payments. The year-end result will not be finalized until the annual financial audit is complete. And that should be sometime towards the mid to end of March. So administration recommends that council accept the operation budget update as information.
Okay.
And I'm available to answer any questions.
Excellent. Questions for Amber? No questions? Councillor Gustafson.
I'll have one. Just a quick question for you, Amber. The water meters, now that cost, is it transferred to the end user, right? So it really, at the end of the day, it's just a flow through, correct? How much markup do we, or is it just
Typically on new home builds, the the cost of the meter is a part of that building permit cost. However, if we repair a meter due to the fact that it aged out or it broke down or something like that, then it is the town's cost.
Okay,
Yeah, we own that meter even like throughout the lifespan of the meter and being installed in the home.
gotcha. Okay, perfect. Thank you. That's all I had.
Is there further questions for Amber? Okay, can I get a motion?
I'll make the motion through the chair that we accept the operational budget updates as information.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Okay, 7.3 bank balance update, Amber.
Can we do 7.2 first?
Yes, you can, actually. It looks like I just want to move ahead today, doesn't it? Yeah, so 7.2, operating transfer to reserve 2022.
Thank you. Oh, right. This is the, yes, a request or discussion for operating transfer to reserve. So the financial reserves are an effective tool to support municipal asset management planning as they allow funds to be set aside to manage assets throughout their life cycle. Because municipalities have limited revenue sources, primarily property taxes, user fees, and grants provided by other levels of government, and limited ability to take on debt for large-scale projects, a common approach for municipalities is to finance large-scale projects is to set aside a small portion of their revenues over multiple years to pay for major infrastructure projects. This approach minimizes the use of financing, which allows municipalities to stay within debt limits and ultimately save taxpayers money by reducing interest costs. Funds set aside for such projects are known as reserves. So there are $163,000 of operating reserve transfers to capital in the current 2022 budget. And I've outlined them in this table in below my report. And administration recommends that council approve the transfer of funds from the operating budget to the capital reserves as presented.
Excellent. Thanks, Amber. I just have a question. Can we transfer operating to capital?
Yes.
I'm asking Amber, but thank you.
Yes, absolutely. That's a way that to increase those, that is the way to build those capital reserves is through this, but planning for them in the operating budget. And along with, transferring within the books, there would also be a bank transaction, I should say, of an equal amount into a restricted bank account.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Questions for Amber? Counselor Gustafson.
When you look at the different departments and you can see where, we've not necessarily over budgeted, but didn't spend that money. Are you looking, I guess, on specific ones or at a certain dollar figure? I see that you've gone down to, maybe $5,000 for the hall. Is there other places where you can grab a little bit of money and put it into reserve, or you just this is kind of what you've come up with, which makes sense?
So it's my understanding that, Sue, can I go? You
Go right ahead.
Okay. My understanding that this would be our preliminary transfer. And once the dust settles on our end year result, then at that point, we would consider if it's available to us, transferring further surplus into reserves.
And that's after the final audit is done. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
A part of the process.
Part of the process.
Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure everybody kind of understood that as well. That would be my understanding is after everything, the dust settles, then we take a look at it again and then you'll probably come back and say, hey, we've got this much left and we'd like to do another transfer to reserves.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Fingers crossed.
Perfect.
Yes.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Any questions?
Through the chair. So Amber, these are the reserves that were put into the 2022 operational budget.
Yes,
That was
they
approved by
exist in the
council.
budget right now. Yes.
Excellent. If there's no further questions or comments, can I get a motion?
Through the chair,
Yep, go ahead.
I'll move that the transfer of funds from the operating budget to the capital reserves be approved as presented.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Okay, 7.3, bank balance update.
Thank you, Mayor Harris. That will be me tonight. And the dust will settle once this audit is concluded in 2023. Administration is committed to providing regular updates to council on the organization's financial activities, including the current cash balances in all operating and capital bank accounts. The capital reserve restricted account is underfunded by $165,453.01, while the offsite levy restricted account is underfunded by $315,691.5 for a combined underfunded position of $481,144.57. The underfunded amount has changed slightly because of interest earned on the holdings in each account. The operating account balance as of November 30th was $2,039,993. Funds in the operating account are required to maintain daily operations between now and when 2023 property taxes are collected. So that money has to get us through January through till June, at least the end of June. Upcoming expenses. The town's base monthly costs are approximately $300,000 a month. This includes payroll, salary, and benefit expenses, monthly lease and agreement obligations, and estimated monthly utility and fuel expenses. One-time expenditures coming due in the next several months include the last quarterly school requisition, sorry to repeat that information, for 2022, and the first quarterly requisition payment of 2022, representing approximately $1 million in cash disbursements. The first of two annual debenture payments for the Railway Avenue borrowing, $166,000, will also be paid in early 2023. Expected revenue, the 2022 CCBF funding allocation of $202,370,000 was recently approved, however, has not yet been received. We're anticipating that before the end of the year, which is coming up quickly. And tips receipts of approximately $240,000 are expected on a monthly basis. Staff have been working diligently to recover monies outstanding for utility, tax, and receivable customers in the past few months, and their hard work is paying off. And I do want to compliment the front end staff for all their hard work on this, because they've spent a lot of time on it to make sure we've got the monies in. Due to the cost reduction efforts across the organization, the operating situation is not as dire, thank God, as previously reported. However, administration remains committed to delay the start of all 2023 capital projects until funding is secured and the 2022 financial audit is completed. Tonight's recommendation is administration recommends council accept the bank balance update as information. And the proposed motion is that the bank balance update as of November 30th be accepted for information.
Excellent. Thank you, Sue. Just a comment from me. I appreciate administration taking the steps early on to ensure that we're in a better situation than what we originally thought. And, that's really putting a freeze on a lot of the spending for the last few months so that we can be in good position for the up and coming year. So thank you. Questions from council? Okay, no question.
Sorry,
No.
I always have a question. I'm waiting for
You're in
everybody
the
else.
zone?
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
It was because I'm actually here tonight and I'm feeling it.
I still felt that online delay with you, though. I don't know what that was.
Was it an online?
A little bit,
Oh,
yeah.
I'm sorry. My question for you, Sue, is you had touched on delaying the capital project until the audit is done. Off the top of your head, do you know how many that would affect? Like did we have anything scheduled in the front half of the year? But quite a few, I think, didn't it?
We do, and we are still moving forward with the RFP for the arena. We have no choice. So
yeah,
that was the
for sure.
one priority.
Yeah.
The second priority had to do with Public Works and the ventilation system. That's on hold until the end of March, early April, when the audit will be done. And we had 3 or 4 major ones, but they can start a little bit later. They're not pressing. We're just
Okay.
going to be starting them later.
Okay, thank you, Sue.
You're welcome.
Great. Further questions? Okay, no further questions. Can I get a motion?
Through the chair, I'll make the motion that we accept the bank balance update as of November 30th for information.
Excellent. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Okay, Mayor and Council, business and committee reports. So I had the honor to eat turkey dinner with the Golden Key Club on Friday night. It was a great dinner and I met a lot of great seniors that are from our town and surrounding area. I also went to Bo's on Business. I wasn't able to see all the businesses, but I was able to stop by quite a few. That was good. Attended the IMC Intermunicipal Committee with Didsbury, Carstairs, and Crossfield. I also attended the Intermunicipal Committee meeting with the County of Rocky View. We talked about the waste agreement, recreation agreement, and a possible contract for our weed control. And then I went to W.G. Murdoch, grade 6 class, and chatted with them about municipal government. Pretty sure I got most of the answers right, but they didn't correct me on anything, so I think I'm good. Deputy Mayor Lambert.
I also attended the meeting, intermunicipal meeting with Crossfield, Carstairs, and Didsbury. Was very informative. I think we had talked about some very on the mark subjects and are really having the CAOs look into what we can do about it.
Excellent. Councillor Brennan.
I also attended the intermunicipal meeting, Didsbury, Carstairs, Crossfield. I also thought there was great conversations had, and I also thought the catering was really good.
Excellent. Councillor Fox.
I also attended the intermunicipal meeting. And I think in the future, our collaboration with being small municipalities is going to help us.
Great. Councillor Gustafson.
I did attend as well, the meeting. I was supposed to have a meeting a Rocky View Foundation meeting last week, but it got rerouted to tomorrow morning, so I won't be able to report on that. I did run into our mayor on the evening of the Bo's in businesses. Yeah, so had a great walk with my wife that evening. It was a very pleasant evening to be out. So one thing I'd like to mention is I have had so many comments on the lighting on the Christmas lighting on Main Street. I want to make that clear that it is just fantastic. So applaud administration and operations for having that done. It looks, like you said, a hallmark moment out there.
Excellent. Thank you. Councillor Knight.
December 14th was a busy day because I was at the Water Commission meeting on December 14th. We reviewed budgets for 2023, 2024, 2025, as well as finalizing our strategic plan, as well as the tri-towns, the tri meeting between Carstairs, Didsbury, and us as well.
Excellent. Councillor Vang.
I too attended the intermunicipal collaboration between Crossfield, Rockview, or Crossfield, Didsbury, and Carstairs. That was a very interesting discussion that night, and the following day I was at the intermunicipal committee for Rockview Crossfield, and we discussed the cost sharing for the waste transfer, as well as recreation, the golf course annexation and weed control.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, can I get a motion to accept mayor and council business as presented?
I'll make the motion that the mayor and council business be accepted as presented.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, moving on to administrative update. 9.1. I forget something again?
I missed the first part of that, Mayor. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. Administrative update, CEO verbal update.
Thank you, Mayor Harris. Couple items tonight. Just wanted to report on, again, another incredible community event that I attended on Saturday, and that was the community hamper program with our firefighters. I do want to acknowledge some of our admin staff that went out and helped out that night. Marion, Colin and Diane and myself. I also want to recognize the incredible initiative this is and the work that's done by Cheryl, Angela, and Joe. The need for secure food has increased by over 50% this year. We know that the community, there are families in our community that are struggling. And this has been an absolutely incredible activity to be part of. And to know that our community cares so much because the building was full of hampers, full of extra food, full of gifts. It just touches the soul to be part of it. I was asked by the organizers if I could relay a message to council that you're more than invited and welcome to attend next year and to be part of that effort. It means a lot to the people in this community that need that help, and it takes a lot for people to ask for help. So if you're interested, by all means, let me know and I'll pass that on. But again, kudos to Cheryl, Angela, and Joe for an incredible job, and all the firefighters that have got this community down pat, because we got those hampers out in, I think it was 1 hour and 37 minutes or something. We had a little contest. So it was great. The second thing I wanted to bring up tonight, just for council information, we're going to change the process a little bit with council timesheets starting in January. The submission date, you'll only have to submit it once like you have been. And I really am asking you to get them in on time. But in terms of efficiencies and to align with MuniWare, we are going to be making 2 payments per month so that it aligns with the paycheck run. So we don't have to pay extra. So you'll get 2 checks instead of 1. And I hope everyone's okay with that. But our mission is efficiency. So we're doing everything we can to make that happen. I'm looking forward to reminding you all about the staff Christmas luncheon tomorrow. Hope that you all can come. I know the staff are looking forward to it and enjoyed the one we had last year. We'll be gathering at the community hall between 11:30 and noon. So we're looking forward to spending some time with you there. And then finally, for me, on behalf of my senior team and all the employees and staff here at the town of Crossfield, I want to take this opportunity to wish all of the residents and businesses in Crossfield a very Merry Christmas and a very prosperous 2023.
Excellent, thanks, Sue. The Christmas hamper program really is second to none. Thank you for bringing that up. I did stop in there on Friday night and chat with Cheryl. And I actually offered counsel for next year. So sorry, and you're welcome. All in the same sentence. So I'm hoping that, council does participate a little bit in this great program so we can go and either volunteer or donate some time or help out at least in some way next year. So if council's okay, Sue, if you want to give her feedback, definitely that I'll participate, and we can send an invitation out to council and see if they participate as well.
Sure.
That would be great. So just a big thank you to, I know a lot of work goes into this for months beforehand. So it's not just a one night thing. It's lots of time months beforehand. So Cheryl, Angela, Joe, and the firefighters, thank you. And thank you to staff for going over there and lending a hand too. I appreciate that. And like Sue said, I think that with council getting paid the same as staff on those dates, create some efficiencies. And those efficiencies come with time and money to prepare the checks. So I think it's a great idea. Anytime we can have efficiencies, that's perfect. All right. And anyone else? Questions, thoughts? Okay, if not, let's get a motion to accept for information.
Through the chair. I'll move that the administrative update, CAO administrative update be accepted as presented.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we have some correspondence, letter from Alberta Public Safety and Emergency Services regarding provincial changes to victim services. I know this is a letter that is addressing some of the letters that were sent by many municipalities on victim services. So I guess, Sue, we'll see what it brings. They're making some promises in that letter saying that they're addressing the issues and it shouldn't affect so much. So I guess we'll wait and see. And then also the 10.2, the Marigold report. Any questions or concerns on any of those two? Okay, if not, can I get a motion for the correspondence 10.1?
Through the chair. A motion, that the information under correspondence be filed for information.
Okay, all in favor?
All right.
All in favor? Upcoming events, December 31st, New Year's Eve family events, 6 to 8. Amory Park, all ages skating party, bonfire, music, fireworks. I attended last year. It was chilly, but well worth it. It was amazing. January 26th, 2023, Crossfield Interagency Meeting, noon to 1:15 at the Crossfield Community Center multi-purpose room. All right, can I get a motion? Don't need a motion for that one. So a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
Okay, all in favor?
Agree.
Aye.
Okay, who won? Sue wins again. You gotta stop doing that, Russ. Like, you gotta secretly tell me what time you want it.
I'm sure that she's got the time.